The whole McDonald's character roster over the years have all seemingly come up missing. And they were so slick about it. Most fast food goers either didn't notice or didn't care. Something happened around the year 2003 where most of the characters would all get fired, and Ronald McDonald was the last one to get the axe about 7 years ago. Now, why would this global food brand hide, abandon, or kill off something that once helped to define it? The thing that best connected children to it? Why remember the characters now when all this time McDonald's clearly wanted us to forget them? Someone must have straight up asked McDonald's where are they hiding the bodies of their old mascots. Cause suddenly they pull up the big furry purple one like, see, he's not dead, he's right here. Literally making up the occasion of Grimace's birthday as a big way to promote the chain and do something new. But there's more to it. With his birthday apparently being June 12th, various McDonald's locations started this promotion to last through July 9th. Outside the visual promos, they had a purple milkshake. Everybody's so creative. The promo also included a website featuring a 16-bit video game about Grimace and his love for skateboarding. The website itself has an early 2000s, late 90s internet aesthetic. It's all for show though, cause none of the buttons work. It's just there to host the video game. It's clearly meant to grasp at the nostalgia of the adults who actually remember Grimace and those McDonald's birthday parties. The backstory of Grimace actually shows Grimace starting off as a villain who stole people's milkshakes, much like how Hamburglar stole burgers.
Where's the Coke? Where are the shakes?
But he soon became a character who just loves shakes. And that seems to be a key reason why the chain decided on purple Grimace shakes for his birthday. The Grimace birthday promo is cute and all, but is no one going to ask how Grimace has been? I mean, nobody's seen this purple goober in years. So over the years, McDonald's has been using their characters less and less. Ever since the topic of childhood obesity came up around 2010, and there was a call for the ringleader, Ronald McDonald, to resign, the mascots have been getting phased out of the marketing ever since the 2000s started. And this is a big deal because the mascots are a huge part of what McDonald's marketing was. McDonald's officially started up in the 50s, but it was 1963 when Ronald McDonald was introduced to American audiences, whose original look was just terrible.
We'll have lots of fun. He's Ronald McDonald.
But after a redesign, McDonald's started a new campaign of commercials during the 70s with a fantasy world called McDonaldland. It was here where Ronald McDonald would hang out with the local, quirky characters, and it lasted from 1971 to 2003. But during the start of its long 30-year history, you had a new character named Mayor McCheese, the mayor of McDonaldland. The mayor was closely reminiscent of H.R. Pufnstuf, a big children's TV show at the time. So much so that the Pufnstuf creators sued McDonald's over it and won. Eventually he was dropped completely in the mid-80s, along with Officer Big Mac, whose name speaks for itself. Captain Crook, a Muppet-looking character who stole Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, which I find kind of hilarious, and the Professor, who invented things, were also dropped in the mid-80s as well. But the other McDonaldland characters who were there since the beginning and didn't get laid off include the creepy Hamburglar and the birthday boy himself, Grimace. Turns out, McDonaldland has a high crime rate. Most of the characters were known for swiping specific food items. You even had the Fry Kids, introduced in 1972 as the Goblins. They would steal people's french fries, but none were as notorious as the Hamburglar, a villain turned friend. His thing was trying to swipe burgers and failing at it, like Swiper the Fox. And like Ronald, he started out with a creepy look, but had a friendlier redesign. It was at around year 2003 where Hamburglar was last really seen in the marketing.
What you say about my mama? Huh?
But in 2015, they would quietly reboot the Hamburglar to advertise a new burger, but then they locked him back away in the McDonald's vault. So apparently Grimace's birthday is June 12th, but I think McDonald's just made that up so that they could have a fresh marketing campaign for summer 2023. His debut was back in 1971 as Evil Grimace. truly looking like an evil purple monster. But a couple years later, he was reintroduced as a good guy. Soon after, he was redesigned to look less like an evil purple monster. During the 1980s, he became one of the main characters, along with Hamburglar and Birdie. As he had an obsession with milkshakes, McDonald's created a green version of him in 1977 to celebrate the Shamrock Shake. Uncle O Grimace is what they called him, and conveniently he would only come out during St. Paddy's Day. I have no recollection of ever seeing this man, so apparently during the early 90s he just stopped visiting. Like the Hamburglar, McDonald's also seemed to quietly lay Grimace off in 2003. But a decade later, during peak Twitter era, what Grimace even was became a trending topic. And even McDonald's themselves seemed to be confused about what he was, but Grimace lore would say he's the embodiment of a taste bud. As disturbing as this sounds, it was confirmed by a Canadian franchisee in 2021. Of course, now in 2023, he was brought back up in the public for his birthday. The promotion brought up an interesting photo shoot showing Grimace through the 70s and 80s as a teenager and a dude with a mullet, completely disregarding the creepy truth of his origins. After the promotion, McDonald's will probably go back to acting like he doesn't exist. But let's go into Birdie, the early bird. Technically McDonaldland's newest and final character, she was introduced in 1980 to promote McDonald's new breakfast items. Her appearance originally was very stiff, but got a redesign starting in 1986. She too apparently was eventually fired in the McDonaldland erasure of 2003. Yes, something happened in 2003 to make this whole McDonaldland premise be largely phased out, along with Birdie, Grimace, Hamburglar, and all the little side characters of McDonaldland. It really started with the HR Pup and Stuff lawsuit in the 70s, forcing McDonald's to cut characters and ease up on the whole fantasy world aspect. During their last 15 years, the remaining McDonald's characters would interact more in the real world and have McDonaldland more of a separate thing that they do for special commercials. The Happy Meal gang and Nugget Buddies would get more screen time in the commercials as time went on, and McDonald's would seek other ways to keep their main characters involved because they were still very popular with children. Also, through the 80s and 90s, McDonald's would try animating all the characters and making more merchandise for the kids, including a kids magazine and an animated movie. From 1998 to 2003, the studio behind the Rugrats would make a videotape series called The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald. In the early 2000s, a marketing decision had to be made to continue trying to animate the characters while the ratings and popularity of the whole brand was decreasing, or go all in on the I'm Lovin' It campaign. I think most of us know what they chose to do. Luckily for them, the I'm Lovin' It campaign did really well, but the early 2000s was a tough time for McDonald's. They had some cleaning up to do with their image. Food health was becoming more of a thing. Then the documentary Super Size Me came out in 2004, and it was something the food chain just couldn't ignore. I think that movie had an impact on all the fast food restaurants at that time. Most notably, they all got rid of the super size option for their fries and drinks. McDonald's started focusing on being cleaner and making attempts to be healthier and reminding people, hey, you love us. We have the tastiest and most addictive fast food out there. You love us, right? During the 2000s, you could still see the fragments and leftovers of the McDonaldland era through the older restaurants, especially with those who had a playground attached. Some of the decorations showing the McDonald characters were still around, and in some locations, you could even still find some seats decorated like cheeseburgers. Prior to the childhood obesity scare and Super Size Me, McDonald's used to be a hotspot for throwing birthday parties for young kids. There's probably a lot more options now for where to have a child's birthday party. But in the 80s and 90s, kids didn't require much to have fun, and food wasn't as expensive as it is now. So with the McDonald's birthday, everyone was happy. They were popular to do, and the kids always had a good time. But there was a decline in the McDonald birthdays around the same time McDonaldland was being phased out, and popularity in general was lowering. A few things that contributed to the McDonald's decline in popularity during the Y2K era was more competition in other fast food companies, more competition in the marketing war for children's attention, and an increase in more health-conscious parents. From what they were putting in the food to the hourly wages they were paying employees, McDonald's stayed busy trying to keep their image clean. In 2006, they started redesigning restaurants to be more family-friendly in a more neutral kind of way, and this would evolve into a more neutral redesign altogether. It came to a point in the 2010s to where even finding an older McDonald's design and seeing McDonaldland era stuff became more and more like finding an old relic or a piece of history. The early 2010s had a trend where all the businesses started going for a cleaner, less is more appeal. Everyone's logo was getting a simpler redesign and wanted to declutter their image the best way they could. McDonald's declutter era was more building redesign and them straying further away from their past, which included the good and the bad, and any memory of their McDonaldland characters. Even on their website now, you can see that it's simplified. It cuts straight to the chase of how you can get your next McDonald's fix as soon as possible without saying anything about birthday parties or their clown mascot. From 2003 to 2015, all they had left as an active character was Ronald McDonald. They had to keep Ronald after all this because he was the face of the franchise. He was there since the beginning, but they would use him sparingly, only as the face of McDonald's and not so much the kids' mascot for McDonald's. The franchise would begin to walk on eggshells around their clown mascot at the dawn of the 2010s because of new criticisms in the form of letters and news articles backed by hundreds of health professionals calling on McDonald's to stop using Ronald in its marketing. A really clever website called retireronald.org was created to educate people on why he should be retired and his negative impact on kids. The people were really staying on McDonald's neck about this. And in the mid-2010s, while the company was already trying to tiptoe their way around using Ronald for their food advertisements, clowns started trending around 2016 for just showing up out of nowhere and scaring people. Social media was at its peak, and there was no way that Ronald McDonald could really survive all this and still be in the public without hurting the brand, so he was quietly put on leave. Again, Ronald can't just stop being the face of McDonald's, so he still exists. The actor currently playing him hasn't been fired or anything, he's just not in the marketing like that anymore. But even though he's not dead or locked away in the McDonald's vault, the clown sightings were the nail in the coffin for old McRonald. Time went on without any of the mascots in the public eye, and McDonald's continued to do just fine. They have been pretty adaptable in these changing times and continue to hold up a good name for themselves overall. They aren't the only fast food brand that needed to stay on their toes and change it up either, and they aren't the only ones to use mascots aimed at children. But the McDonaldland characters actually hold fond memories for a lot of people who grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It was the nostalgia of those characters and McDonald's birthdays that gave the company the idea to temporarily resurrect Grimace. We are in an era where nostalgia is a huge marketing factor for a lot of our entertainment now. So now all of a sudden, one by one, McDonald's is willing to bring back the characters they threw away for the sake of appeasing their adult customers. Old McDonald's, as disliked as they are by anyone health conscious, are again very adaptable and have been known to have a good idea once in a while. You could boil a lot of McDonald's history over the past 20 years down to them just wanting everybody to love them and a fear of rejection, which could also boil down to them just wanting to make as much money as possible. It is just a greedy old corporation at the end of the day. So stay away from McDonald's unless you're just really, really hungry. Subscribe for more, and I will see ya.